everybody. Welcome back to the Unfiltered podcast. My name's Katie.
And I'm Cecily.
And we just appreciate you guys following us, going along this crazy journey with us.
Yeah, and tuning in. And please subscribe or leave a review on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or YouTube. You can DM or text us.
Yeah.
We love just hearing if you tuned in or just like what you took away from the podcast. So yeah, please let us know how we're doing, and we love the feedback, and we love to adjust if we can. So
or just talk about questions that you guys want to hear about,
Yeah.
Because this is obviously for us. Like,
Yeah,
let's be honest, we're being selfish about this.
we love
want to
talking
talk
about
this.
what we want to talk about, but we also don't know what other people want to hear, like
Yeah.
our perspective on, because we would love to talk about that. So
Yeah.
just let us know. And but what are we talking about today, Katie?
Today, we're talking about the real, the REAL, like live in the flesh, versus the REEL, like the highlight reel.
Yes.
So I personally like to say, like, I'm a blooper reel kind of girl, because I'm not afraid to just be weird in public or in private or on social media or whatever. But I think in today's age, especially with like social media being so prevalent, like the highlight reel is such a thing.
Yeah.
Like, that's all we post, which is fine. But like, how do you specifically stay true to who you are, like showing the real you, like in person, as well as like translating that to social media? Because social media, you can just like make assumptions based on people. But like, even when I was stalking you back in like our
Before we knew each other that well.
yeah, I was like, this just seems like such a cool girl. And I can't say that all my assumptions were correct, which obviously they shouldn't be, but like,
It's different in person, like
Yeah.
who you actually like are, it. So there's two things that with this, that to answer your question about me personally,
Yeah.
is it is your highlight reel, and I think more people are just starting to realize that, and that's the best just mindset to have. Like, hey, I'm looking at somebody's profile and knowing this is not who they are fully.
24/7.
Right, exactly. So I think just taking things with a grain of salt is always good. But yeah, I think, editing pictures, I try not to like over edit them in sense of like, I'm not going to change my body style. Like, I might put a filter on stuff. I like it, how it all looks, but I also like, I like to be pleasing to the eye. I like the artistic side of that. I think that's fun, and I think people want to stay updated with my life and that type of thing. I'm not huge on like these big old vulnerability posts, and that's just because I think that's almost an easy way out of vulnerability to say, hey, like, this is what I'm struggling with, when I never told anybody else that.
we talked about that the other day.
We talked about that, and so I think for me, I want a purpose for my social media, and I just think that, again, like having the idea that this is a highlight reel in some sense.
Yeah.
But I want to just be as real as I can in person. Like, I don't want it to be like, I want my social media to be like somewhat me, in the sense of like, okay, sure, it might not show my bad day, but like, hey, this is truly who I am. I show my weightlifting on there. I show my friends on there. I show my podcast on there. Different realms, I guess.
Yeah.
I want it to hit like who
Like
I am.
the different areas, like the things that you're interested in, like your interests.
And one thing to talk about with that is, I had a boss tell me, like, people are going to look at that, and so you need to make sure you're evaluating like what it's representing. So in some sense, like, yeah, you want to represent what you want to represent. You don't want to be fake, but it's like, hey, if you do love weightlifting, if you do love family, is that shown? Like, it's kind of your resume in a sense.
Yeah.
It's in like it's today's like resume.
It really is.
I think before we like move on, like, go back, look at your Instagram. What does it tell your employer?
Yeah.
And if you don't like what it tells your employer, like, probably just put on
Or
private.
ask somebody, like, hey, if you saw this, like, what would you think about me?
Yeah, I think that's a really
remember
good
doing
question.
that in a psychology class.
And then does it line up? Like, if it's all selfies, if it's all swimsuit pictures, okay, what does this tell somebody? And then it's like, okay, do you want people to think that? Okay, if you want that to be like the attraction,
then
like,
keep doing it.
Then do what exactly. But it's like, for me, I knew I wanted to represent like the things that were important to me, for a good reason, and like, I think that is a way of staying true to myself on there. But for you, I feel like you use your social media a lot differently than me, which is amazing. Like, she's very like real on it, and it shows a lot of funny, like, goofy things. So tell me, like, have you always been that way, or like, how did you get to that?
So yes and no. Like, for the longest time, and it's interesting to say this, like, I'm a super private person, but I'm also an open book. So sometimes I say, like, you have to be able to read in like imaginary ink if you really want to like read my book, but at the same time, it's there if you want to read it. So with like Instagram and social media, like Snapchat, like, I'm very protective over like who follows me, who views my stuff like that. Like, I for the longest time didn't post anything on like stories and whatnot.
Yeah.
Like I would just have like snaps with like certain people, or you know, like Instagram. Like I would never post anything. And then I just realized, like, not that I thought people might be interested in some of the things that I do, but just that I thought they were funny. And so I'm like, you know what, if you're going to laugh, like I will let you laugh at me.
Yeah.
Because I do some weird things, like, you know, and I have this, I hate when it sounds conceited, but like I love it when people compliment me on weird things. But there's multiple people who are like, oh, I always watch your story because I'm ready for something funny.
Yeah.
And it's usually just making fun of myself, or just like certain life things that we all go through. So I guess I can't say like I've always been how I have been on social media. I think it's just like I've come to find where like I fit into like the things that make me happy. But I always have been witty, like my captions and stuff. Like I think a lot of people just look at my pictures to see like what my captions are.
Yeah.
You know, I come up with different things, but I've also had people look at my social media and be like, oh, this is what I would assume you would be like. Yeah. And sometimes they're really spot on. I'm like, okay, good. I'm glad that you see that. And then sometimes they meet me and they're like, yeah, I didn't expect any of that.
That's funny.
And like one of my favorite things in the world is like when someone will see me and they make like their first impression of me without me even like speaking to them. And then I'm not at all what they expect me to be. Like,
people do. People make like definitely make assumptions on who, you know, like who you are. Yeah. Or when they first meet you, or compared to like when they first saw your Instagram or whatnot. But yeah. I think like the biggest takeaway I took from that is, I mean, your posts are for the people because you thought, hey, maybe these are like something that they would enjoy listening to, or watching. But it's also very you, and like you are doing it for you in the sense 100%. Of you're not trying to please people. Like,
I don't know.
Not at all.
Not at all.
So I think that was really cool. I think I took that away from like, it's not like, hey, I'm going to post this just so I can like get some attention for how I look, or get some attention for, it's not for attention. Yours is not for attention.
Yeah.
So I think that's cool.
Yeah.
I think that's
Thanks.
I think that's the biggest thing nowadays. That's the issue. And again, it goes back to my comment on like the purpose of social media and the purpose why you're on there. I do think people love to keep updated on your life. So I think if you're doing it for that, if you're doing it, just to give some people some entertainment, if you're doing it for business purposes. But I think the problem is like a lot of times it's attention seeking. It's like it's a void filler of community. I think it's just a place to display some insecurities, honestly.
Yeah, and
or to prove that you're not insecure, but like you are. Yeah. I don't know.
I think something that you've obviously opened my eyes to is just like the connections that you make on social media. Like, yes, you might have thousands of friends, but like, are you connected truly to any of it? So do you have any real relationships with the people that you connect with on social media? And I think that's so big because like you could have thousands of followers, you could have millions, you could have the blue check mark by your name, but are you really connected to anyone there? Like, does anyone know the real you? So going back to how you said, like, if you were to post something vulnerable, like, would your closest, realist relationships know that you were going through that? And how kind of horrible would it be, like, as a friend to realize, like, oh my gosh, she's going through something real and I found out through social media. So I think everyone could probably relate to finding out something big through social media and how hurtful that is. Because that's like, okay, one, maybe you didn't feel comfortable enough to tell me. Two, like, maybe I just wasn't being a good friend and listening either. And so, like, that in itself is just, like, an issue with, like, the realness or the fakeness of social media. And, like, again, is it attention-seeking? Because being vulnerable or, in a sense, like, oversharing, like, where is that line of, like, this is okay to share and this is, like, not okay to share? And I think it has to come down to how often you share those things. Like, if you're consistently oversharing, that's a lot. Yeah. Or if you're like not oversharing, but like being vulnerable or like giving
a true vulnerability.
Because
some people will say I'm being vulnerable by sharing this, and then I think a couple things to ask yourself, and I ask myself this, is like, what truly, like, why am I posting this? And then if it is seeking to be more vulnerable and sharing like my heart on something, have I talked to people that I really care with, like, about this or what I'm struggling with, and do people know about it? And then, I think especially removed from that issue, sometimes, like, that's a great time to share, hey, like, last year I was struggling with this, and you've had time and emotion away from that. And because
the people that are around you are aware of it.
I think that's I think there is a good time to share hard things on there, because I've been touched by what people post, and I'm like, oh, I didn't know they were going through a hard season. Like, I didn't know. But I think it's a source. not that you have to tell everybody everything, but I think if you're not going to tell one of your best friends or your sister, but they find out through social media, it's like, okay, like.
Well, it's a way to make connections too, and to like reach out to people who maybe
are similar. So that's why I think it's good. I mean, I think it's a good thing. I think you just need to evaluate like
when and where.
And then is it true vulnerability? Like, or are you really feeling like it's, you know, attention seeking a little bit? And have you been bold enough to share with other people to get, you know, maybe get help and process through some of that, like just struggles?
Yeah, that's a big part of it. And I mean, obviously you can find help and make connections through like people who reach out to you, because that happened to me at one point. Was I was vulnerable about, I wasn't vulnerable. I think it was one of the videos that Max and I did. And someone reached out and was like this really meant something to me. And I was like, wow, like let's talk about this. And then I became really good friends with them. And I was like, I probably wouldn't have become good friends with you had I not been vulnerable with this one thing. And I mean, it's common knowledge. I don't cry a lot. And I don't know if it's just like, I feel like I could cry sometimes, but like my eyes just don't work. I don't know. But when I posted again, it was a video that we did, Max and I, and the light video. No, this was the other one where you asked me like what people meant to me in 2020, and I didn't really expect it, but like I started crying. I cried. You were one of them. Max was one of them. Yeah, and like I can cry. Yeah. And so that was like the little snippet of the video that I posted. And a lot of people replied to that like, wow, like you are really vulnerable and that takes a lot of courage. And like I didn't think about it because I wasn't thinking like, oh, I'm crying in this piece. Like people will feel bad for me. Like I wasn't crying sad tears. Like those were like genuine happy joy tears. Like 2020 was really hard, but like look what I got out of it. And so I feel like those vulnerability posts are really cool in a sense because you can connect a lot of people, and sometimes it allows people to feel bold about their own. Like I've even had a supervisor reach out to me and he was like, you know, I always admire like the things that you post and just how like loving you are towards yourself. Like it makes me want to be more like that. And I was like,
oh, I love that.
Why, thank you.
That's awesome.
I'm just doing things. And laughing at myself.
Yeah, that's so awesome. So talking more about the connection like with people, whether that you got that through social media posting or just in life, like when have you maybe struggled to be real, or like what have been the benefits of being real compared to when you kind of want to tell half truths and not tell the whole story? Like I at least can automatically think, wow, like there's been some big differences when I told the whole truth or when I told like half of what I was going through.
Like on social media?
No, just connections out like side of that, but also maybe you found that connection through social media. If that's what I'm saying, like, you know.
Yeah, so...
It doesn't have to be social media.
Well, you're right, because, like, there has been connections, like, made through social media, and, like, there's times where, like, I will be fully vulnerable with somebody and say, like, hey, this is what I went through, and this is... But I think it takes, like, a little bit of discernment as well. Like, why is this person reaching out to me? And, like, what are they going through also? Because I guess that turns into like Counselor Katie. Like I almost have to respect like their story and not like tell my story over theirs, because they're reaching out to me for a reason. Right. And it's likely that their story is resonating with my story, or maybe they know somebody who's gone through it. And so it's like I don't want to talk over them. And so I think I tend to just ask questions and like test the waters. Like how much do you want to know and why are you wanting to know these things? Yeah. And then I share from there. So I don't know if
have you ever sorry to cut you off.
No, you're good.
Have you ever been tempted to not share and then shared and felt like that was the right decision in a scenario like maybe you're like, hey, I've been really struggling with this, but I have been holding it in for a while, and you finally shared and it felt like a weight lifted off your shoulders? Have you ever experienced that?
Oh yeah, I'm not a sharer usually. Like with like big life things. It's funny because people are like, oh, you're such a good listener, you're such an open book, and I'm like, am I? Or do I just like let you talk and then I add some bits and pieces into it? Yeah. I always say like I'm a kangaroo. Like I will stuff everything and I deal with it internally. And then once I deal with it internally, like I might tell people about it if it comes up in conversation, but it's likely that like I won't, because I'm not somebody that like I go through something and then I have to like talk about it. Like sometimes, but usually it's like I deal with it, I'm good with it, it goes away, kind of.
Yeah.
I guess.
Yeah. You definitely like internally processing that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've realized like I tend to, I don't know. I share stuff in hard times. Sometimes I just like overshare. I feel like I'm just trying to just process out loud, I do that type of thing. And sometimes I hold everything in. But I feel like sometimes when I'm being the absolute like realist, throw it all out on the table, like this is really what I'm thinking, this is really what I'm feeling, like even though I think almost afraid to tell everybody everything just because I'm like, okay, what are they gonna think of me? Like,
what if?
Right. Or, you know I'm silly. Sometimes I already know I'm silly, but I just need to process it through, or I need to talk about it or whatnot. And those are like, wow, I'm so glad I got that off my chest. Like that was really truly a burden. I got to like,
it just feels good to
your friends,
sometimes.
well, yeah. And your friends like truly can help you with your burden, like carry your burdens. And those have been situations.
Those big strong arms from all the push-ups you make me do.
Right. But like, yeah, sometimes it's just like, tell you something and I'm like, I kind of already know the answer, but it's something that I just needed to like, dump on you, even though it's not a heavy load for you, because it's not your emotions aren't tied into it, or and so I was thinking about that as we're talking about being real, because that is also what creates like real connection between people is, hey, I was really honest about this and we got to handle this together. You did get to carry my burden. I got to carry your burden. And now we have the ability to like have the connection that's even truer or deeper than it was.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
That's really true. Cause like, and I think with real relationships, like it takes a little bit to, I don't want to say like, not necessarily like trust somebody fully, but like, not everyone needs to know your deepest, darkest things or like the most, I don't know, the big things in your life right away. And I think sometimes we have different friends that we can tell different things to or like need different advice from. But at the same time, like those who are like super close, like you and I feel like I would just tell you whatever and whenever, But it took a while. It's not like, hey, here's my life story, plop, like good luck with it. Welcome to my roller coaster.
Yeah, that's so true. And I think for girls, we tend to be overshares and we tend to like say too much to too many people. I think you're probably better at that than me. Sometimes, as soon as I start feeling comfortable, I'm like, okay, I shared that with them. And then I didn't realize that, maybe I should have waited longer to see how that friendship's going to pan out before I shared, X, Y, and Z. It's hard to tell, but I would say as I've grown up and learned, it is, you see the track record of that friend and you see maybe the little things they've done to remember, your grandparents' name or like what they did, like how they remembered your middle name, like silly stuff, but they did things that were meaningful to you. And over time you're like, okay, I can trust this friend and I think they truly care about me.
Yeah. If you can trust them with the little details, like.
Exactly. And I think, part of where we're getting wrong in this is like, as soon as someone messes up in a friendship, you're like, oh, they don't care about me, blah, blah, blah. That's not true at all. And I think friendships are harder than, like we want to make them. We want to think they're like the easiest thing ever, which usually they are easy, but they're going to come across hard times. But I think if someone showed that they cared about you over time, then like, hey, I can trust them with this detail of my life. And, I think that's been something that I've had to learn,
I think going through this too, someone came up to me and she was like, I watch a lot of podcasts. I watch a lot of YouTube videos of people. She's like, and I feel like I know them. And she was like, well, I feel like I know you and Cecily. And I was like, okay.
Yeah.
And so hearing that kind of sounds, I don't want to say creepy, but like in a sense, it's like almost protective. Like, do you really know me?
Yeah.
Like just based on the conversations that you and I have, like, does somebody really know me? And so it's almost like a protective factor of like, okay, but there's only like a few people who really know me. But is there like a false sense of knowing towards other people? Like because you follow them on social media or about them, like do you have a false sense of knowing them?
Yeah.
And I feel like I run into that a lot. Like because I'm friends with you, people think they know me, and because you're my friend, people think they know you, and I'm like, but do you really know her?
But it's different. Yeah, but it's totally different. That's so true. I think that just goes with today and how everything's running with social media, because I feel like I would say that about certain public figures on Instagram. You feel like you literally know their life. You know their kid's name, their dog name, like everything that they tell you over social media. But we don't know them personally, and that's probably a good thing. Like a lot of times people say like once they get to know somebody, it's like totally different and not what they expected. And some people are the same or similar to what they portray. And again, that goes back to, we aren't going to see their bad days on social media most likely. or at least not all of them. And then we just have to, take what we see with a grain of salt, and then just try to be as real as we can.
Yeah. Well, and just give people grace. Like they're going through their own stuff, and so it's just like, you know, if they want to be vulnerable, they have a reason for that, and that's not for you to judge necessarily. Like you could take that person aside and be like, hey, was this like the right thing to share, or you know, and that would come with like having a real friendship. But also, it's just being real is hard because so much around us is just filtered.
I love the giving grace part. I think we all learned, like we were not the same people that we were 2 years ago, 3 years ago, 4 years ago. So when we're
the same person I was like a month ago.
Exactly. We're always growing and evolving. Things are changing in our lives, and it's so awesome. Yeah. And for some reason, when we grow, we expect people to grow in the same ways. I'm super guilty of this. If I'm working on limiting my time on social media, that type of thing, when I see somebody on their phone all the time, I'm like, why are you doing that? Like, you shouldn't be on social media all the time. But it's so silly because it's like, I was struggling with that a month ago or whatever it was. Like, I tend to think that people need to grow in the areas I've grown in. But it's like they're in a totally different season. They're feeling like they need to grow in other areas maybe. Like they, So I think that's a good point. But
so main points.
Main points is just be yourself. Like we know that social media is a highlight reel, but we still think there is a good way of showing like who you are on there. And what you value.
Just be consistent in checking yourself. Like, why am I posting this?
Exactly. Asking yourself,
is this really going to portray like the real me?
Is it for somebody else or is it for me?
If a stranger saw this or if my boss saw this, like what would they think about me?
Yeah. If it is my resume.
And not that you need to live for like other people's opinions.
100% true. But if it's public profile, like you need to understand that it does matter, and you can't be mad when an employer sees a half naked picture and just like, hey, I don't want to hire her. So if you're doing that, I think you probably should consider private.
And make sure that you can choose your followers.
Yes, consider it a private profile. And if you're not doing that, then just consider like, if it's appropriate caption, if it's appropriate picture, if it shows what you value. I think those are some things I think about the purpose of me posting.
Well, it even goes to show like the people who comment and like if there's some like comments that you're like, oh, like I should hide that one, or that also that goes to show like the people you're surrounding yourself with, and honestly what you're portraying. Like if people are commenting in a certain way, like that says everything about what you're portraying. Yeah, exactly. So whether it's good or bad.
Right, exactly. And I think another main point that I took away is that it's definitely a good thing to be able to post like for people in a fun way. Like, hey, like this is something goofy and silly I did.
The blooper reel.
The blooper reel. Like I think that's a good thing, So just evaluate what you want your social media to be for, but be yourself, and then also just be open to be real and real. Yeah. And just normal life conversations, friendships, like those type of things. That's how you make true connections. Like people can tell if you're being fake, and if they can't tell initially, they will tell. And another thing is like if you're not being your full real self, then they're starting to like a fake sense of you. Like even if they can't tell.
Even
if you were always being fake to me, like I would be liking this fake
You would
Katie.
Like fake Katie, not real Katie.
Too bad I like real Katie.
You signed the contract.
Yeah, so I think that's the biggest thing.
I think too, just making sure that you're receptive to people's feedback as well. Like if you're posting certain things or if you're oversharing or whatever, if someone comes to you and like maybe obviously make sure that they're giving it to you for the right reasons, but understanding that they're probably not in it to gain anything from you, but really just giving you good feedback and just being open to that type of critical feedback. Not criticism, but like critical feedback in terms of like, hey, I don't think this is best for you or whatever. So.
Yeah, that's really good. And I think a true good friend won't sugarcoat everything.
No. I do love some sugar though.
But yeah, I think those are good points to end on.
Yeah, so if you guys have questions, comments, concerns, criticisms,
we will take them.
We'll take them. We'd love to hear what you want to hear. But
we also love to hear if you're pursuing similar things, and if we could talk about it, that's awesome. And
come hang out with us.
Come hang out. We love it. All right, thank you. Tune in with us next time.